3 minutes.
Wait for Rob.
That's very good.
This is a very old crowd. You get the Nikki spiel. You don't,
Once in a while. I try to lay low. Yeah.
she'll turn it on.
All right. Pretty good. No complaints.
Great.
Living the dream.
Good luck this evening. I just looked out there like I met him before, and I was not successful in finding him either.
You have the new one?
I do not.
Oh, it's new and improved. Coming up.
Okay. Quorum of 75 being present, the 2026 Bolton Annual Town Meeting will come to order. As is our tradition, let's first stand and pledge allegiance to the flag over here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome to the May 4th Annual Town Meeting. The warrant having been posted as required by our bylaws, we will now commence. I hope everyone did have a chance to look at the warrant. There are some copies here, if anyone would like to have one in their hands. They were on the town website and distributed throughout town. I'd like to introduce everyone. I'm Doug Story, your town moderator. There's a stack up in the back there, if you're looking for a copy of the warrant. To my far right is our town clerk, Kristen Zinna. And then we have our town council, Brian Falk of MERP, and our town administrator, Marie Sobolavaro. And on my left, we have our select board, Kate Bayek, Brian Boyle, and Bill Nichols. And our advisory committee, Robert Guerrero, Don Cole, Hannah Staton, Greg Meyer, Craig Lauer, and Brian Mooney. Before we start addressing the warrant, I want to review a few of our town meeting procedures. Thank you for everyone taking a seat. Please make sure your phones are turned off. And please remain seated unless you are coming up to a microphone to speak. Our quorum is 75. We've exceeded that without any trouble tonight. All our decisions are by a vote of aye or nay if it's a voice vote, or if we use our remote clickers, it's a yes or a no. So yes is an aye, No is a nay. And we will do both, just for fun. Just so everyone knows, you can change your mind. If you push yes and then decide you want to push no, it's going to register the last button that you pushed when I call for the vote to be cut off. And I'm going to go a little more quickly today than I have in past, because I think most people are ready to make a vote when we call for the vote, and we should be able to do that within about 10 to 15 seconds. We have some presentations tonight. Most of those will be fairly brief in a couple of slides. We limit those to 1 to 3 minutes. We do have the advisory presentation, which tends to be longer, and it's more in-depth review of our budget. If anyone wants to speak on an article, I would ask you to begin to queue up at one of the 2 microphones as soon as you know the article's coming and you're going to want to speak, so you're ready. It's okay to get there early and have a line if need be. I'll alternate, so we'll give everybody a chance to speak. Any registered voter can speak on an article. I will recognize you at the microphone, and please ask your question or your comment directed to me, the moderator, and then if it is a question for someone to answer, I'll call on them to answer the question. If we have guests here that are either giving presentations or have been asked to answer a question, we'll point them out as not a registered voter but a guest, and give them, if I call on them, they have the opportunity to speak. Please keep your comments focused on the issue that's before the meeting. As you probably know, if you've been here before, I'm pretty adamant about that. We've got a warrant with, I believe, 26 articles on it, and 27, more than that. We want to get through them all. 29, sorry. We'd love to get through them all tonight, if we can. So we do need to keep comments specific to a particular warrant article, and you certainly, can have your say, and we will let you do that, but there is a limit to how long you can talk, and if something's already been said, we don't really want to hear repeat the exact point again. So, if you have something different to say, that's great, or if you just want to give your opinion, that's fine too. But we try to keep it to new comments. When we get to the town budget, which is Article 4, I will read through the entire budget before we take any questions. And the way we read through the budget is we read the line total by category. We don't read every detail. And then when we get to the end of a department or a major category, we'll stop. And when we stop at that point, I'm going to ask, does anyone want to put a hold on anything that I just read? And all I need you to do is raise your hand, say I'd like to have a hold on whatever part of the budget it was. I'll make a note of that, and then when we get through the whole budget, we'll come back and go through each of those questions that have been raised. It's a little more efficient that way, I think. Let's do a test of our clickers. We have a test question? All right. Is the number on the back of your voting device an even number? So if it is, you want to choose 1 yes. If it isn't, you want to choose 2 no. And you'll see what happens is the numbers turn blue as your vote goes in. If somebody wants to try changing their vote, they can do that just to see that it works. or, well, you're not going to see that it works, but you can see on your clicker that it's been changed. And then once everyone has had a chance to vote, I'll say, let's close the question. And when we close it, we'll get a count. And you'll see on top, there were 138 votes, 71 yes, 67 no. The one thing you want to be, if anyone has just seen that their clicker did not go blue when they pushed it, we'd want to give you a new clicker. So is there anyone who had any problem with their clicker? Okay, we have one over here. And one here. There's another one too, Jenny. Anyone else? I will call for a voice vote on a few articles that I think will easily pass. It's actually a little faster. When I call for a voice vote, I'm using my judgment as to whether or not a majority voted one way or not. I can even do it on a 4/5 majority. If it's unanimous, it's pretty obvious that it passed. If I called a vote and someone had a question with how I judged that call, you could raise your hand and say, I question that. And basically, we need 7 people to stand up and question it, and then we'll in the past, we would have gone to a ballot, but now we have the clicker, so we can do it. So you do have the ability to question that. There is a section in the back of the warrant that talks about town meeting and how we conduct our business, and I hope people take a look at that. It's hopefully helpful. Are there any questions? We're still waiting to get these 2 folks' devices. I should have said that we use town meeting time, which is a book used for parliamentary law, and it's used by, I think, all the towns in Massachusetts. Is that right? You know? Most, but we've used it for years. Are we good? 2 people got remote devices replaced? No. Okay, hang on. I'll tell you what, we're going to start and we'll use a voice vote. All right? So we're going to start with Article 1, which is to accept annual reports. That is sponsored by the Select Board. It requires a majority vote and was recommended by both the Select Board and the Advisory Committee unanimously. What is your pleasure?
Article, Mr. Moderator.
The article has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on Article 1? Seeing none, I will call for a voice vote. All in favor of accepting Article 1, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. That passes unanimously. See, that's easy. Article 2 is unpaid bills for the previous fiscal year. And I'm not going to read all the detail on these articles, but the one thing I do want everyone to know here is that we had a change to the main motion here. We've actually reduced the amount. The amount you see is correct, which is $14,543.87. In the warrant, it was $20,000 and change. So there were actually some bills that were taken care of that were able to be taken off of this. So Article 2 is to approve unpaid bills for the previous year in the amount of $14,543.87.
Move the article, Mr. Moderator.
Okay. The article's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on Article 2? Seeing none, let's try a voice vote again. All those in favor of Article 2, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. That passes unanimously. Did we get the clicker situation resolved? Yes? Okay. Article 3 is to replenish the reserve fund. To see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds a sum of money not to exceed $175,000 to be transferred to the Advisory Reserve Fund. This is sponsored by the Advisory Committee and approved by the Select Board and the Advisory Committee unanimously and requires a majority vote.
Move the article, Mr. Moderator.
Second.
Okay, the article has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on Article 3 to replenish the reserve fund? Seeing none, I'm going to keep going here. Let's go with a voice vote again. All those in favor of Article 3, please say aye. 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 Opposed? Nay? That passes unanimously. Article 4 is the town budget. Let's move the article and then we will have the presentation. So let me read it, since it's a big number. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and transfer from available funds or otherwise provide the sum of $34,901,624. And I'm not going to read the detail there, but I'd just like to move the article and then we'll do the presentation.
Move the article, Mr. Moderator.
Second.
The article's been moved and seconded, and we have a presentation by Bob Guerrero from the advisory.
Okay, thanks, Doug. Good evening, everyone. I'm Bob Guerrero. I'm the chair of the advisory committee. I have a short presentation on the budget, but before I get into that, I just want to take a moment and describe our process. As you know, the advisory committee consists of, when we're all present, 6 volunteers from the town. We're chartered to annually review the town budget and review the warrant articles. We really provide an independent set of eyes that looks over the budget, and we make recommendations to the select board, to our town administrator, and to you through the town warrant. So our process starts in earnest in December, and we meet almost every week from mid-December through just a few weeks prior to annual town meeting. We review the town budget in great detail, line by line, with all of the various department heads and our town administrator, and put together a lot of the details you're going to see here. It's not just our effort, though. It's a team effort, and throughout the entire process, we get great support from everyone on the select board, from our town administrator, Marie Sobelvaro, from our town executive assistant, Jenny Jacobson, and from our town accountant, Anashka Rogers. So I'd like to just thank all those folks for all their help during the year. All of our meetings are public. They're posted on the town website. Most of those happen over Zoom. If anyone has any interest in seeing the process in general, or if you have a specific interest in a budget item, please join us in our meetings. And if anyone is so inclined to get involved in the advisory committee, let our town clerk know. We generally have an opening every year or two. Okay, so I will get into the presentation on the budget. If we can go to the next slide. So the proposed FY27 operating budget is $34,901,624. And just as a reminder, when we say operating budget, we mean those recurring annual expenses that fund the day-to-day functions of the town. And so that operating budget reflects a 2.8% increase from last year's operating budget. The total budgeted expenditures, this is the operating budget plus all of our capital items, is proposed for FY27 at $36,848,290. And that's an increase of 7.1% from fiscal year 26. And that increase is really a reflection of the fact that this year we are able to make some capital investments that we had been deferring for the last several years. So on the whole, we're on solid financial footing. This budget maintains our town services, continues the school support, increases some of our funding reserves, and then provides significant investments in deferred maintenance and purchases. Okay, so let's look at some of the details. First, if you can go to the next slide, we'll look at the revenue sources. It's no surprise, but the vast majority of the revenue that the town takes in every year is from taxes. And that makes up over 89% of all the revenue that comes in. The new revenue, the growth in revenue year to year really comes from two sources. One is the Prop 2.5 increase that we're allowed by law every year, plus the new revenue that comes from new growth in the town. And this year, we're estimating more than $400,000 in new growth revenue. Part of that is due to the new Alta Neshoba development that is starting to be occupied, but there's been growth in other areas as well. This year alone, we've had 2 restaurants open in town. We have had a fitness center open, a dog daycare center has opened. So there's been substantial growth in the town. In fact, that $400,000 in new growth, I've looked back over 10 years, and it's the most we have seen in those 10 years, and likely the most we have ever seen in a single year. So the town is growing at a good clip. The next largest source of revenue at 5.1% are local receipts. That's primarily vehicle excise taxes and a few other things. We're using about $1.6 million in free cash this year to fund some of our capital items through some of the warrant articles. That's 4.4% of our total revenue. And then you can see what the other smaller items in those sources are. Okay, that's where the revenue comes from. So here's where it's going on the next slide. Again, the budget is made up of 2 elements, the operating budget and the capital items. We've broken down the operating budget into like 5 large, broad categories. The first one is education as a whole, which makes up the bulk of the operating budget. And this education line primarily has 2 elements in it, the Neshoba Regional School District and Minuteman High School. And so you can see the total dollar amount there, about $23.4 million, which is a 3.1% increase from last year. The next largest item in the operating budget in a broad category is salary and wages for the town departments, and that's increasing 2% from last year. All of the other operating expenses for all of our town departments is increasing about 4.5% from last year. Insurance benefits and retirements increases about 1.1%, and there's a slight decrease in our debt service. And that's where we get the total operating budget number that you just heard, $34,901,624. And then under that, you can see about $1.86 million is proposed in capital items. That's over a 400% increase from last year. And that's really, again, last year we were not able to invest in really much of anything, and so this year we're able to do that. Okay, in a couple of minutes I will walk through all of those capital items, but for now we're going to dive a little deeper into the operating budget. Next slide. So this pie chart represents all of the pieces of the operating budget now organized by town department. So you can see, again, the bulk of it is the education line. That's 67% of our operating budget. The next largest piece is public safety. That's about 9.4% of the budget. After that, employee benefits is about 6.5%. General government functions makes up 5.6. Public works is 5.2. And you can see all the other pieces to the budget. On the next slide is the same pie chart, but now with all the numbers. And so now you can see what the dollar increase is for each of these departments. Education, again with the two pieces, Neshoba Regional School District and Minuteman High School, increases 3.1%. Public safety is up 2.2%. Employee benefits 1.1%. General government goes up 4.9%. Public works increases 1.7%. Decrease in debt service. And you can see the smaller ones towards the bottom. Culture and recreation up 4.7%. You can see the others there. Okay, so that's the operating budget. Next slide. I mentioned some significant investments in capital items. What we are able to do this year is actually replenish a number of our reserve funds, and that's what I mentioned up front. This puts us on some firm financial footing. So Article 3, which we just voted on, replenishes the reserve fund to the tune of $175,000. That is primarily going to cover the snow and ice expenditures from this past winter. We are also going to transfer just over $427,000 to the stabilization fund. This is the fund that the town uses in cases of unforeseen emergencies. And there is a minimum threshold that we want to maintain those funds at relative to our operating budget. So by adding this $427,000, we're just maintaining those reserves at a sufficient level. We're also going to transfer $579,000 to the capital stabilization fund. You might recall last year at annual town meeting, we reviewed and approved a capital stabilization fund that is a mechanism that we can use to proactively plan for large capital expenditures. And it's a way to set money aside for some of these bigger purchases. So we're going to seed that with $579,000. There are a number of articles that get into specific capital items, and all these we'll hear in detail when we get to that particular article. But Article 9 will fully fund our OPEB contribution. Article 16 will replace the phones in the public safety building. Article 17 purchases cameras for the transfer station. Article 18 covers exterior painting and other maintenance on the DPW garage. Article 19 replaces the network switches in the Florence Sawyer and Emerson schools. And Article 20 replaces the exterior doors in the Emerson school. Okay, next slide. I mentioned that we are seeding the capital stabilization fund. Well, we're also going to draw from that fund this year for some of these capital items that we need. One is to finish some upgrades to the wastewater treatment facility. We're also investing $20,000 in fire pond improvements and $75,000 in highway improvements, which will go towards some road paving, and then $75,000 to do some repairs at the Bower Brook Dam. And then finally, there are two articles that would replace two DPW trucks. These have been deferred for the last few years. These will be future debt items that will be included in the debt service once we take delivery of the trucks. So we won't see the impact until probably fiscal year 28 for those trucks. Okay, next slide. So we have a number of financial policy targets that we try to maintain. These are not requirements, but they're best practices. We'd like to go into any particular fiscal year with our certified free cash. That's 3 to 5% of our total budgeted expenditures from the last year. This year we went in at 6.7%, which is healthy. After we go through the budgeting process, we would like to see our free cash balance be at least $350,000. After this year's budgeting process, we'll be at $700,000, which again is healthy. We want our overall reserves to be 6 to 10% of our operating budget. We're right in the middle there at 7.9%. Debt service payments should be no more than 5 to 7% of our general fund revenues. They're at 3%. and we're able to fully fund our OPEB contributions. So again, we're in a solid financial position here. Okay, next slide. So what's the impact to this proposed budget? In FY26, the average single-family home assessed value is about $865,000 in Bolton. So the tax bill impact to that home would be $346. If your home assesses for more than $865,000, you'll see more of an impact. If it assesses for less, you would see less of an impact. So after the budgeting process that we went through last year, when we had an override, the advisory committee, the select board, committed to doing some more rigorous and deliberate future forecasting. So if we go to the next slide, so we set some budget targets, and we ran some analysis and looked forward to 5 to 10 years in the future. And these targets that we set in broad categories, we determined that if we could stay within those targets, we could sustain budgets like this into the long term. So the salary and wages category, our target is 3%, and that's what the blue bars are on this bar chart. The insurance target is 6%, employee benefits 10%, other general government, that's all the other functions in the town, at 2.5%, and education at 3%. And so the green bars are where we land in FY27, and this is the increased expenditures from year to year. So looking at this bar chart, it across the board looks pretty good, although I had mentioned earlier that education block has two main components, the Neshoba Regional School District and Minuteman High School. And so on the next slide, when we break that out, the picture looks a little bit different because the Minuteman High School actually had a significant decrease in their assessment this year. And the Neshoba Regional High School had an increase quite a bit above the 3% target. So now, I think there are two areas that we need to look at that are a little bit above our targets. If you can go to the next slide. So the first one is this other general government line. Our target was 2.5%. We came in at 3.3%. The increase was $108,000. That's almost completely due to a plus up this year of $46,000 for some town building repairs. As our town buildings age, they are getting increasingly difficult to maintain. That's part of a broader discussion. You'll hear a little more about that tonight. But if you look at the pie chart in the upper right, that other general government line makes up only 10% of the total operating budget. So that 0.8% overage is not really a huge concern. The one that is a concern is the Neshoba Regional School District assessment. The target was 3%. It comes in at 4.2% this year, which is $792,000. Because this one assessment, the Neshoba Regional School District alone, makes up 62% of the operating budget, it has the biggest impact of any other element in our budget. And NRSD operating assessments above 3% are just not sustainable in the long term. In fact, NRSD assessments of 4% or higher will require future Prop 2.5 overrides. It's not sustainable. And so as one illustration of why this is not sustainable, if you go to the next slide, I mentioned before that our new revenue every year has two components to it. It has the Prop 2.5 allowed increase every year, and in FY27, that will be for us about $710,000. And then we have the new growth, which we're estimating in FY27, $425,000. So that's the total new revenue that we have to work with. If you go to the next slide, this is where that revenue is going. The Neshoba Regional School District assessment this year is over $792,000. It consumes virtually 100% of our Prop 2.5 increased revenue, plus almost 100,000 of the new growth. And then you can see where the rest of the new revenue goes in smaller increments into general government, our warrant articles, public safety, and you can see the rest. One of the concerns is that this substantial growth we have had this year, over $400,000, it's not realistic to assume that we will continue to have $400,000 every year, year over year. So as new growth tends to our normal value around $200,000 that we tend to see year over year, there will be very little additional revenue left for the town to grow. If you go to the next slide, so to give you a sense of the scale, a 1% increase in the NRSD assessment is roughly $200,000. Now, our understanding of the Neshoba Regional School District position is that they believe they're providing the program that the town of Bolton wants. And if that means that we have to have a Prop 2.5 override every few years, then that's just the reality. They'll have a chance to speak in a minute after me, but if you disagree with that, you need to let the school district know. Okay, next slide. So I finish up in the same slide that I started with, the proposed budget, $34.9 million, operating budget. We're on solid financial footing. It maintains our services, supports the schools, increases our reserves, and allows some significant investments. But there's a warning that increased assessments from the school district above 3% is just not sustainable in the long term. Okay, Doug, over to you.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, now the next presentation will be the Neshoba Regional School District presentation by Ross McCullough.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to see some familiar faces here. On behalf of Superintendent Downing, who's attending the Lancaster Town Meeting, he may walk in the door any minute. Just providing the brief overview of the Neshoba Regional School District budget being put before you this evening. So a couple of notes that I want to just cover ahead of time. And, you know, Mr. Guerrero, who's always a great partner, essentially, I think, reiterated where we are at. We are an educational institution. We see our jobs as the primary mission being to provide every student an excellent and full education every single day of their school year. With that said, we started our budget season in August. August through December, we are doing internal preparations. That's the entire leadership team. Also working with some of our educators as well in the budgeting process. Our budget goes public in January, and since that initial workshop in January, we work to bring our budget back down to a place where we feel like we can still deliver an excellent education for each and every student every single day of the school year next year. I want to sort of mirror also what Bob said relative to Zooms and videos. We have a FY27 budget development page on our website, which shows the progression of that budget from January to the school committee vote last month in March. Whoever's driving the slides, you can go ahead to the next slide, please. So this is the entirety of the operating budget, debt excluded, for the Neshoba Regional School District. You can go ahead to the next slide, please. I just want to provide a quick breakdown of debt service. This town, along with the two other member towns, voted for the new regional high school construction project a few years ago. We are currently on time and within budget. We had a great strategy to bring a bond advisory group together to talk about how we are going to borrow for that project. There is no new debt being added to the FY27 debt assessment for the high school. So because we are in the process of receiving our MSBA revenue on our construction payments that we are spending through the bond process, we're starting to use those to pay construction costs, and we are deferring our next stage of borrowing that you will not likely see until FY28 on your debt assessment. Also coming up in the near future, we're going to say goodbye to some debt, which is welcome as we bring on the new debt to finalize the high school project. Next slide, please. So we have a little bit of a formatting issue here that I was not aware of. So just quickly, I don't need to reiterate everything Bob said about the numbers, but you can see here the increase on the operating budget is approximately $794,000. Your debt service will go down in FY27 because as new payments have not come on or new debt has not come on, your share of students at Neshoba Regional High School has gone down, which brings down your share of the debt. And then you can see the entirety of the assessment there. So last year I stood before you and talked a lot about challenges that we were having for this current year. Going into this year, while we still understand the position that Bob has expressed on behalf of FinCom, or excuse me, the advisory board, we did a lot to mitigate the impact of those FY26 increases into FY27. So special education was a headline last year for sure as we built this year's budget. So for next year, we've done a lot to separate ourselves from some contracts for transportation, which we're growing astronomically. We're bringing that coordination in-house so that we can negotiate route by route and we can address student needs while still maintaining cost control in that market. Furthermore, on special education, we did a redesign that will begin next year. It was presented to the school committee last week, but you can see the entirety of that on the materials. We redesigned our special education programs a bit in the district with the goal of making sure that we decrease our students who need to leave the school district for their educational needs. We need to do a better job internally and build those programs to service more students in district, not only for their benefit, but it's also financially more efficient as well. Health insurance. Last year I stood before you. We had a 19% increase quoted to us for our health insurance premium increase. We were able to negotiate that down to just under 17. This year, 11.58 with no room for negotiation. We did try the open market, but it was not going to be anything that was going to bring any sort of benefit to our school district or to you financially. We'll continue to look elsewhere next year on our health insurance issues, but just like the town, just like all municipalities and school districts and most companies right now, health insurance premiums are increasing at a significant pace. So the other piece on this that I just want to share is outside of all of that, our non-salary, excluding debt service, our non-salary, so this is everything except for our salaries and our benefits, is only going up 1.34%, and that's inclusive of special education. We're very careful about our methodologies on budgeting for our pens and pencils, as you were, on a per pupil basis, so that's pretty straightforward, and then entertaining other issues. Things like in our utilities, we get ourselves locked in on some pretty critical contracts to minimize the impact of what's happening. So for example, the headline right now is on oil. We are paying for the next 66,000 gallons in this school district, $2.68 a gallon. So we find our ways to be as efficient as possible with public funds with the mission of that excellent education. So with that being said, Mr. Moderator, thank you for your time. Thank you for the partnership of the Select Board and the Advisory Committee, and thank you again to our school committee for their support, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, Ross.
Thanks.
Appreciate that. Okay, as I said earlier, I'm going to read through the budget and give you the total on each.
Where do we find these presentations?
Are the presentations posted? After the meeting? On the website? They'll be posted after the meeting. Thank you. So I'm going to read each category and the amount, and then when I get to the end of a department, a big category, I'll stop and say, are there any items that I just read that anyone would like to raise their hand and say, I want to hold to come back to for questions after I read through the whole budget. So I'm on page 30 of the warrant, the FY 2027 budget. back a few, but let me read through it and we'll bring that up. I assume you're going to have a question in that section, and we'll try to get back to that slide. Okay, so I'm going to read the categories and the amount by category, and then I'll let you know when I'm ready to see if we want to make a whole. So this is our FY 2027 budget, page 30 of the warrant. General government, item 122, select board, $19,660. Item 123, town administrator, $290,422. Item 131, advisory committee, $173. Item 132, reserve fund, $125,000. Item 135, town accountant, $144,063. Item 141, Board of Assessors, $173,143. Item 145, Treasurer, $141,071. Item 146, Tax Collector, $98,232. Item 147, Human Resources, $14,058. Item 151, Legal Services, $130,000. Item 155, MIS, $85,648. Item 161, Town Clerk, $106,186. Item 162, Elections, $9,798. Item 163, Street Listing Registrars, $3,550. Item 171, Conservation Commission, $103,761. Item 175, Planning Board, $159,996. Item 176, Appeals Board, $200. Item 182, Economic Development, $750. Item 190, Town Buildings, $287,900. Item 192, Town Hall, $42,278. And item 195, Town Reports, $3,623, for a total general government amount of $1,939,512. Now, if anyone has any holds on any of those, if you could let me know the item number or the department. Okay, not seeing any, we'll move on. Public safe, excuse me. Okay, I'm sorry, I missed you. You have a hold? What number? Or what department? 136? I see 135, 141. Which one is it? 146, okay. I'm sorry if I heard you wrong. 146, all right. Are there any others in this section? And feel free to call out. You don't have to run up to the microphone to just tell me this. All right, we'll move on. We're at item 200. We're under public safety. Public safety building, $265,922. Police department, 210, $1,817,889. Item 230, fire EMS, $793,632. Item 241, the building inspector, $34,984. Item 243, plumbing and gas inspector, $21,145. Item 244, wiring inspector, $24,488. Item 291, emergency management, $3,900. Item 292, $21,443. 292 is animal control officer, excuse me. Item 293, traffic lights, $2,435. Item 294, tree warden, $77,027. Item 299, dispatchers, $207,000, for a total on public safety of $3,269,864. I'll stop and see if we have any holds on any of these items. And again, just call out if I don't see you. Okay? Moving on to education. Item 301, Neshoba Regional School District, $21,917,210. Minuteman Regional Voc Tech, $1,426,570. 303, Post-Secondary Voc Ed, $31,812, for a total education amount of $23,375,592. And, excuse me? Yes, other holds? All right, we've got several. Do we want to give me specific? 301? 301? 301? 301? Any others? Okay, we've got 301. Thank you. All right, now we're at Public Works. Item 421, Highway, $1,011,803. 422, Construction and Maintenance, $209,100. 423, Snow and Ice, $180,000. 424, Street Lighting, $11,200. 433, Transfer Station, $305,651. 439, Landfill, $42,000. 440, Sewer, $28,000. 450, Water, $15,000. 491, Cemetery, $10,000, for a total Public Works budget of $1,812,754. Do we have any holds on Public Works? Okay. Human Services, 510, Board of Health, $68,771. 522, Nursing, $13,699. 541, Council on Aging, $137,811. 543, Veterans Services, $40,000, for a total Human Services budget of $260,280. Any holds on Human Services? Okay, thank you. Culture and Recreation, 610, Library, $595,891. 630, Parks and Recreation, $82,378. 691, Historical Commission, $6150. 692, Celebration Memorial Day, 5,000, for a total cultural and recreation of $689,419. Any requests on culture and recreation? Okay. Debt service. I'm not going to read each one of these individually, but you can see the individual items, and you certainly have the right to ask a question about any item. The total debt service is $1,123,873. Any holds on debt service? That actually came down. A hold? 610? 210. Okay, that's in the police department? Okay, I've got you. Thank you. Okay, nothing on debt? All right, employee benefits. I'm going to go through the rest here because we've got one page. Total employee benefits, $2,279,065. I didn't read each one individually. We had the Worcester retirement assessment, we had workers' comp, unemployment compensation, health insurance, life insurance, and Medicare tax all make up that $2,279,065. Other insurance, $945, $151, $264. I should have said total employee benefits, $2,279,065. Other insurance, $151, $264. Total budget, $34,901,624. Any questions on that last page, employee benefits or insurance? Okay, if anyone wants to speak, please come up to the microphones. We'll go back through. And I believe the first one was did we have a hold on tax collector, 146? And the next one after that will be police department, if you want to come on up. And when you come to the microphone, if you could please state your name and your address. Thank you.
Hello, my name's
Down. There you go.
Tammy Ballard. I live on 27 Bear Hill Road. And the perspective I'm bringing is one where I've been an executive director for Brigham Women's Hospital for nearly 20 years and currently the American College of Healthcare executive. So policy-informed budgets. And I noticed that in my own budgeting, during mergers of hospitals and across health centers with the introduction of AI, the pressures on reducing administrative costs have been enormous. And in fact, it can be very effective to incorporate some of these measures. I mean, they're very sensitive in nature, but I've noticed in every salary line in the administrative costs here have increased, specifically for the tax collector. And my understanding is that we don't collect taxes. And so my question is, my husband spoke in the February virtual meeting about, and Kate, you promised an update in March about the status on that. So, and just a general curiosity, with a growth of $400,000, what is that compared to the total number of outstanding taxes that have not been collected? Yet the tax collector's salary has increased. So what's the, what is the span of that, the role of that job? What's the expectation that we'll pursue them? That's my question. That's why I stopped there.
Okay. Your question is the 400,000 of new growth. I'm sorry, I didn't get weight.
It's several things. Like one, our administrative costs are all increasing, and we don't have. I mean, we when you think about this, isn't a town office that handles water bills and sewage bills. I mean, we don't have a lot of services that run through the town. So one question is, why are all the administrative budgets increasing? And the second one, why is the tax collector increasing when we don't pursue taxes which my understanding is in totals over hundreds of thousands of dollars in the town that that have not been pursued.
Okay, I think I heard you there.
Yeah.
Why are the administrative costs increasing? And why do we not pursue unpaid tax bills? Marie?
Marie Salvavero, Town Administrator. I can answer the administrative costs as we're all on a grade and step, and with every year of service, we're incrementing one step. This year, the advisory committee approved also a 2% cost of living. Last year, if you recall, all town employees, as well as all unions, took a 0% COLA. So that's for that component of your question. For the second, with regards to tax collection, if you recall the slide that Bob Guerrero had shown, in terms of our Prop 2.5, we collect taxes. The most prominent source of revenue for the town is tax revenue. Bills are mailed out, they are collected. I think what you're discussing is the accounts that are in tax title. And if you recall, there had been an earlier tranche of accounts that were settled by virtue of an auction. We have a cohort of accounts that are just sitting in land court. Due to changes in Mass General Law, we are in effect in a state of stasis on that. But the expectation is when the property is sold, we will be paid.
And I just have one other question. So salary increases are based on just time in the position, they're not merit-based?
We, for the town non-union as well as union, we do not have a merit-based system.
And so there's no sort of an MBO, or is there any oversight on performance that sort of informs salary increases? Like everybody in this room probably follows that type of a salary increase.
Everyone in this room in terms of the private sector employees?
Performance-based
Okay.
increases.
That is
yeah.
not the model we have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I would just like to point out that we did do an update less than a month ago on the properties that are in tax title. So you can look at the select board minutes from either 1 or 2 meetings ago, and I did provide an update on tax title.
Okay, thanks, Kate. And now,
I'm Christopher Erickson. I'm at 75 Bolton Woods Way. I just had really a question. Line item 5580, uniforms for the police department, is listed as a requested amount for $23,000 for this fiscal year, which is the same as the fiscal year 26 budget. You know, that's more than some items in this town like trash hauling, and I was curious, I guess, how many uniforms does that purchase? Where does that number come from?
Chief.
How you doing, sir? Chief Murphy. Per contract, with the every year when there's a contract, the officers get a certain amount of dollar amount to replace uniforms and things like that.
Thank you. And do you have a breakdown per uniform or something there?
Do you know what the new contract says for the cloud and what?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but if you send me an email asking for a copy of the memorandum, I will send it. But there's 2 components. One is for uniforms for the full-time uniform staff, and one is a lesser dollar amount for our part-time officers, our reserve officers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think the next category was education, and there were multiple people, so if we could come up to the microphones, whoever would like to speak. I'm going to go here because you're here first.
Good evening, folks. My name is Ted Barton. I'm a 30-year Bolton resident. My wife and I live on 35 Vaughan Hill Road. I'm a retired consulting engineer and business manager. I spoke last year to a much larger crowd, but nice to see everybody. And I want to start by saying a thank you to our select board advisory committee and our town moderator, who put in many, many long hours for absolutely no pay in what is usually a very thankless job. So thank you, guys and ladies. We don't pay them anything, but they look sharp. So, and, I see my neighbor Bill out in his yard work clothes, and he looks much better tonight. So, okay. So every year, the budget presentation that we see includes an estimate of the projected tax increase for an average residential property. This year was $346 for a property assessed at $866,000. While helpful, I think that figure only tells a small part of the overall story. For fiscal year 25 to 26, my wife and I's tax bill went from a run rate of $17,200 to $21,300, an increase of $4,200, or about 24%. So that reflects an assessment increase of about $54,000 to about $1,070,000 for our home. The full levy increase, the initial tranche of the new high school debt, and the $1.9 million override that was approved at last year's town meeting. Looking forward to FY27, I expect our annual bill to increase by $427 based on the proposed budget, plus any assessment increase, plus the final tranche of debt for the new high school. I was happy to hear Ross said that might not happen until 28, but if it does happen toward the end of the year or early into the next year, that $71 million in debt is going to result in a tax bill for my wife and I of something on the order of $25,000. So as representative seniors in town, that's a very painful sum, and I think it's equally painful for the working taxpayers of the town. So the takeaway from that is I think we need to focus on the overall bill, not the $346 increase. But turning to tonight's budget proposal, I have a number of concerns, but I'll focus on my single biggest issue, and that being the unsustainable 4.2% increase in the town's Neshoba assessment. As you heard, this assessment accounts for fully 2/3 of our total operating budget, while the increase of almost $800,000 exceeds the entire allowable increase in our base levy limit. As our advisory committee chair stated in one of his summary slides, Neshoba operating assessment above 3% are not sustainable in the long term. Annual Neshoba operating increases of 4% will require future Proposition 2.5 overrides. And that's a statement that I find horrifying, and I hope that most of the folks in the room would agree with that. That's somewhat amplified by a statement from our select board on page 5 of your warrant. They stated, last year we reluctantly asked the town to support a $1.9 million override. The select board is very mindful of the heavy tax burden on our residents, and that further overrides are neither desirable nor affordable to Bolton residents. Amen. The district has saddled Bolton, Stowe, and Lancaster with the debt burden of building a nearly $250 million new high school. Enrollment at the high school is declining. A set of numbers I saw in the budget package was from 863 to 807 students. The school ranking is falling. 2019, we were number 37 out of 352. We're now at number 67. Given this situation, I don't think it's too much to ask Neshoba to meet the town's 3% limit. While advisory and select board has done a generally reasonable job of the town's 1/3 of the budget, Neshoba has not held up their end of the bargain. For that reason, I intend to vote no on the overall budget, and I encourage you to join me in sending a message to the school administrators and the school board. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Ted. Okay?
Is it possible to bring up that slide?
Yes.
That showed the principal and the interest on the high
Let
school?
me come over and make sure I know what slide you want.
Oh, thank you. You'll notice that the principal that we're paying. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Alice Romer. I live at 185 Main Street in Bolton. I'm looking at the fiscal year 27 principal payment versus the fiscal year 27 interest payment. And the interest payments are pretty impressive. I bring this up because when we had the special town meeting, it was really emphasized that we're just borrowing the principal and we're not going to increase, we're not going to ask you for any more money. And that was re-emphasized over and over and over again during that special town meeting. What I realized afterwards is that nobody ever talked about the cost of borrowing. And I'm just wondering if, Mr. Ross, if you could explain why the school committee and the district did not bother to bring up the cost of borrowing when they made their presentation. Thank you.
Okay, the question is about the cost of borrowing and that not being part of your presentation today. Ross?
So I don't have that special town meeting presentation in front of me. We did do modeling as part of that presentation. So we had talked to our financial advisors. The bonding advisory group was happening around that time as well. My recollection is that there is slides in there that talks about for each of the towns. So I'd have to go back and check. You're shaking your head. But I believe we did include that interest. I believe at the time we talked about anywhere from 4 to 5% interest on the bonds, as that was the information given to us from our financial advisors. So sort of the same as your town administrator. Feel free to email me and I can make sure we're looking at the same slide deck. We do, just like any borrowing, you're paying more interest up front, but our true interest costs have come in much lower than what you're seeing in the sort of the residential mortgage market as well. So we're doing well, but the days of borrowing municipal at 2 or 3% are over, according to our financial advisors. So our model of 4 to 5% on interest cost is coming in there. But please feel free to email me. I'll stop by afterwards. Make sure you have my email address. Thank you.
Ross. Stan?
Good evening. My name is Stan Wysocki. I'm at 74 Hudson Road in Bolton and a resident of this town for 37 years. Some of you might know me as one of your selectmen for the past 20 years until a little bit earlier in 2025. Bob, I want to thank you. Great lead-in, great straight man for a number of things that I wanted to say, and I'll keep them brief. 2 things. One, Mr. Carrera eloquently pointed out the unsustainability of assessments in the Neshoba Regional School District assessments over 3%, and the fact that, you know, in the not too distant future, if we continue to have assessments like we have had this year, will require another Prop 2.5 override, which I don't think anybody would be too happy about. Mr. Barton, who talked just before me, my taxes also have gone up 24% starting in January. So, you know, I think a lot of us are in the same boat. But I wanted to bring some perspective to this because being a selectman for the past 20 years, I've been on the forefront of this and have worked with many other select board members, with members of advisory, with multiple town administrators, the school committee, and district management. In 2015, in April of 2015, the Bolton Board of Selectmen discussed and voted and sent a letter to the regional school district management as well as the school committee, basically stating that continued increases in the assessment as we have been given in 2015 would be unsustainable. And this is going back 11 years. So this problem is not new. We have managed to avoid an override for as many years as we have because of what I believe is an excellent financial management of the town's budget throughout many elected and appointed select board members, town administrators, and select board members. Now, we sent that letter to that group I had mentioned. Additionally, Bob also mentioned the level of detail that the advisory committee and select board go through every year with all of our department heads to analyze and scrub last year's budget, the budget that's coming up, and try to wring out the best possible outcome. I mean, I can remember times when we were removing $10 or $20 from somebody's line item in their budget because we're looking through the ledger and you hadn't quite spent everything you needed. And we do that from January through late March. In that letter that we sent to the school committee and district management with a focus on the school committee, we had asked the school committee to do the same level of detailed scrutiny and examination of the school district budget as we do in Bolton. And we wanted to get together with everyone to see if we could figure out a way to make this work. Unfortunately, that did not happen. We sent the same letter, basically the same letter, in January of 2023, stating again that the increases in the Neshoba Regional School District assessment are unsustainable. And we knew we were going to hit a brick wall at some point in time. We also asked again for the school committee to go through and analyze the school district budget with the same level of detail as we do here in Bolton. And unfortunately, nothing came of that. In the fall of 2024, when we realized that we were going to be hit with a fairly significant override problem, we had a special meeting right after Thanksgiving. And at that meeting, I had brought forth details of all of the non-teaching salaries in the school district. I took out the teachers, teachers' assistants, I removed custodial, I removed finance, I removed athletics. So strictly speaking, administration and clerical. That number at that time amounted to roughly $8 million for salary and fringe, which represented about 15% of the total salary line item of the district budget and 10% of the entire budget. And I asked my colleagues at the time, we needed to at least try to address this piece to see if there was something we could do to get some streamlining, at least for that portion of administration and clerical, of which there were 15 full-time clerical positions. And I'm not sure why we would need 15 full-time clerical positions, but they were there. Unfortunately, I could not get my colleagues to agree with me because in our system, you have to have at least 2 of us to say yes. And I couldn't get
Stan, could you please wrap up so we can have some other people?
2 of us to say yes, and that's the reason I left the board. So I think we are at an inflection point. We really need to work diligently with the other towns. We cannot continue to have the level of assessment increases that we're seeing today. Thank you.
Thanks, Stan. Over here.
Hi, Anthony Lapomardo, 58 Fox Run Road. I have a couple pointed questions for the school committee. In the FY27 budget, we know it went through multiple meetings before tonight. The official minutes do not document a single member proposed dollar reduction across that cycle. every reduction in budget updates 1, 2, and 3 came from administration adjustments, insurance recalibration, state revenue updates, and the transportation coordinator savings the superintendent recommended. Can anyone over there name a specific dollar reduction they personally proposed during the cycle that was incorporated into the final budget? I'll take that as a no. My second question, since FY19, the district has added approximately 1.5 to 1.8 million in annual discretionary spending. All in, items the school committee chose to add or expand, separate from state or federal mandates. That includes Dean of Students positions valued at hundreds of thousands of dollars annually, equity services and strategic planning programs, the new Open Architect data analytics platform, and expanded standalone administrative build-outs in HR and business. Has the school committee ever conducted a return on investment analysis on any of those discretionary additions? I'll take that silence as a no. Across FY25, FY26, and FY27 budget hearings, can any member identify a single instance where outcome data, whether it be MCAS results, graduation rates, AP performance, college placement, was presented alongside a budget request to demonstrate the return on what the taxpayers are funding?
Hi, I just wanted to introduce myself. Hi, everybody. My name is Leah Viverito. I am the current chair of the school committee, and I didn't expect to be grilled tonight, so I'm not necessarily prepared
It's your
to
budget.
answer this gentleman's questions. However, if you would like to hear from me after he is done with his 3 minutes, I'm very happy to speak tonight if you would like to hear from me. But I'll let you continue with your examination.
I want to be clear. I think the town side did its work during the override. Town services were level funded and capital was deferred. The school side grew through it. Equal accountability is what I'm asking for. And tonight that means asking the school committee the same questions I'd ask of any high-performing public board. Thank you.
Thank you. Over here.
Hi, my name is Pam Dean. I live at 167 Fox Run Road. So I think what's important and what we've heard is a lot about the budget numbers, and we need to reflect on those. Neshoba Regional School District represents 67% of our overall operating expenditures. 75% of our town's total budget increase this year is going to the school district, as it has been for many years. After the shock and awe of last year's 2.5 override, our advisory committee followed through on their commitment to us by developing a 5-year budget projection, focusing on sustainability without an additional 2.5 override. Based upon these projections, they asked our school district to cap their year-over-year expense increase to us at 3%. The response of the school district was to send us a budget, which they approved, which requires us to support 4.3% increase. What happened to 3%? After last year's override, I spent many hours doing a deep dive into the school's financials, budget process, reporting protocols, watching video meetings. Questions were asked, I asked them, of the school committee chair, Leah's here, of our Bolton representative, Amy, and the superintendent. My questions were answered with non-answers, or the comment, it will be taken under advisement. My takeaway, there seems to be a go-along to get along attitude from the school committee leadership and members when it comes to their fiscal responsibility to our community. When budget increases are questioned, their finger is pointed back to us, criticizing our town's fiscal management. The following is a quote from a recent email response I received from Ms. Vivarito, chair of our school committee, when asked why the district isn't working within a 2% cap.
Can you please wrap it up?
I respectfully disagree that a school system should only grow 2.5%, especially when salary increases, not to mention benefits, grow at an average of 3%. That a town claims that they can continue to provide excellence over time for free is a farce. Revenue must increase. And she ends her message with, look to Stowe for an example of fine municipal management over time. My response back, we expect our representatives on the school committee to be collaborative, fiscally responsible partners who hold the district accountable to our town's revenue sharing guidance. With a $70 million operating budget, the district has plenty of options available to effectively manage operating expense growth while delivering quality education to our students. This is an and, not an either or. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Over here, please. And if we could try to keep our comments to 1 minute now, we've had quite a few impassioned speeches that have made good points, but we are on Article 4 here, so please, thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jacob Steinman. I live at 72 Bolton Woods Way. I've lived there since 2015. And as far as I'm able to discern so far, I'm the only parent who stood up here. I hear and appreciate a lot of the concerns about the budget and the direction the town's budget goes, but I also am really deeply concerned about people trying to turn the education of my children into a game about numbers. I have 2 kids who are in the Neshoba system right now, and it is a good system. It is a wonderful system. And I can tell you right now, because I heard concerns about the performance slipping. In my day job, I'm a juvenile public defender. I represent children who have been charged with crimes. And I can tell you right now, cutting the budget for a school, reducing the opportunities that our children have, that doesn't set them up for success. That doesn't give you your return on investment. I really would encourage everybody in this room to remember that when we are talking about this budget, you're not just talking about numbers. You're not just talking about taxes. You're talking about supporting people in this community. I said this last year, and I'm going to say it again. I pay taxes that help support the Council on Aging. I don't use it, but I want to pay those taxes because I want the elder members of my community to have those services. Pay the taxes for the school so that my kids can have those services. I get everybody's concerns. I promise you that my budget is just as tight as anyone else's in this room. And I don't have the luxury to sit around and pick apart other people's budgets day after day. This is my town and this is my home. And I would like to see my children continue to get the kind of quality education they've been getting here. And this budget seems to be the way to do that. I'm going to vote yes. I'd like the rest of you to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Over here.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Ballister. I live at 2 Goose Pond Path, and I did not prepare remarks, so sorry if this is not as coherent as some of the other presentations. I've been in Bolton since 2022 and hope to make this my forever home. I've never lived anywhere in my adult life for more than 4 years after moving a bit myself and then moving around the country following my husband who was in the Air Force. I grew up in Central Massachusetts. When he retired, we chose to come back here in large part because of the school systems. If Massachusetts was a standalone country, our schools would be one of the top in the world. I've lived many other places. I've seen schools in many other places, and Massachusetts just top notch. We could have stayed in Nebraska and paid half the taxes and had half the education. I echo everything the gentleman just said about you can't always tag a financial return to your taxes when you're talking about the education of your children. I think that's a very important thing that we do as a community, taking care of the community. The other thing that hasn't been brought up yet is the ship has sailed this year on the school budget. If you wanted to push back on the school budget, you should have shown up to school committee meetings. I joined the meeting for the final vote, and I believe I was the only person from the community there. Nobody spoke, nobody brought up concerns. At this point, a no vote just brings chaos to the town. We have to have a budget in place by June 1st, and if we vote no tonight, I don't actually know what happens, but I know it's not good.
We'll be back.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Don?
Hi, I'm Don Cole, 442 Main Street. I've been on the advisory committee for 3 years, and I just wanted to explain I'm the person that voted against this budget, and I'd like you to consider some of the things that I have come across. Number one is it's not the town. Town, they're level funding, they're fighting for every penny. It is the school is my concern. For the 3 years I've been on the advisory committee, they have not come anywhere near the 2.5% increases that's required by law. Every year it's significantly over. Number two, for the past 3 years, the school has, I call it a rainy day fund, of about $2.5 million of our unspent taxes. Ours is the 3 towns. So they're sitting on $2.5 million. Why? I don't know. As a CPA, I think that's a bit high. Then in October, I attended one of their meetings, try and get a sense of what was going on. They were talking about this unspent tax money. And during that meeting, it was discovered that the state of Massachusetts was going to give them an extra $225,000, roughly. That was unexpected. And they voted to keep it, not to do anything for our taxes to help anybody else or anything else. They just sat on it. So that's why I voted no, and I hope you'll consider that as part of this vote tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Don.
Hi, Jeremy DeBlois, 132 Harvard Road, and I'm with the gentleman who came up here earlier. Parent, I got 2 kids in this school system, and my main point I'm going to bring up here is points that have been brought up before. We picked Bolton because of the school system. And I don't know if this is known to many people out there, but I would have guessed so, because everybody knows when you're moving somewhere, especially if you're buying a home, it's a major investment these days, not like it was 50 years ago. I mean, you're paying your whole life for this thing and then some. So school, heavy in the choice of why we moved here. And this is being done around a lot of communities. It's this, everybody wants a good school system for their kids. As you all already know, our taxes come mainly from residential. What else does Bolton have to offer other than a school system? Think about that for a second. Why else would people want to move into the community and raise a family if you don't have a good school system? The moment you take away from supporting those schools and the programs that go into it, you're going to see a reaction. And if you want proof, just look up what happened with North Attleboro, okay? Look what's going on with parts of Westboro. Look what's going on with Randolph. Take a good look, because I can tell you right now, they're hemorrhaging money. They can't hold on to people. They are having a problem. Many of those communities voted to not go with the override. And it was even worse. This past winter, there were communities, there were streets that never even got plowed. They relied on their own residents on the streets to try and plow them all out because they couldn't even get the funding to properly pay people to come and plow those main roads. That's just one example. There's, what is it?
Jeremy, if you could wrap up, please.
Yep. Point I'm trying to make is you don't support the school systems. You don't give people a reason to want to come here. Believe it or not, towns, communities get money from the state, get money from the government. The more kids you have, the more families you have. That doesn't mean nobody cares about the elderly. I'm going to still pay my taxes when I'm old and gray. Hopefully I'll make it that long. But we're not a business. It's a community. All right?
Thank you, Jeremy. Over here. Okay. 1 minute.
So I'm Alan Levin III. I live at 128 East End Road. Both my children attended Bolton schools. My wife attended Neshoba Regional High School. My son formed Neshoba Robotics Team 1796, so I have some idea of what's going on. My comments are, Mr. Guerrero went to a meeting with the two other towns and the school superintendent. He did his presentation. He was very clear on what was going to happen if we couldn't control the school budget. And my take on the situation was the superintendent rejected it out of hand. It's interesting that the superintendent chose Lancaster to go to because he believes that's even more of a problem than Bolton. That's why he's not here. At least that's my assumption.
If you could please keep it to the issue and not talk about personalities.
Okay.
Thank you.
What did sounded like a personality?
The superintendent specifically.
Okay.
And it felt like you were discussing what he did or didn't do in a way that was...
So the fact was that he did not discuss Bob's point with him in a meeting where the purpose was to discuss Bob's point.
You made that point, and that's fine.
Okay.
But let's leave it at that.
All right.
Thank you.
And finally, last year, if I believe the discussion correctly, there were a number of senior administrative positions which were taken out of the budget so that the budget would actually fit. And then magically, there was a savings which allowed those positions to be redone. So I'm wondering whether there's going to be a magic saving this year that we can't count on yet.
So is that a question?
No, because I won't get an answer.
Okay. Unless someone wants to. Go ahead, Ross.
So first and foremost, your son started a world-class robotics team, so thank you. Relative to your question regarding, I think you termed it magical. So what occurred in late March of last year after the school committee vote on the budget, I was getting signals from my colleagues in other school districts that they were negotiating with the Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance Association to bring down their rates. We had been quoted 9.92, and when I went back to them, sort of late hour, I think it was probably either March 30th or March 31st, I'd have to check my email, said to them, this is what I'm hearing, what can you do for us? So through some pilot programs that we put in place, in addition to some work that they're doing relative to retirees and Medicare, so we were able to reduce it to 16.62. The delta on that change supported bringing back the Dean of Student positions, which were the last positions that were removed from the FY26 budget prior to the school committee vote mid-March. So it wasn't magical money, it was money that was appropriated that we no longer needed to support our 9.92% increase, and that delta is now supporting our deans of students who interface with our students each and every single day on a myriad of issues.
Thank you. Over here, and if you could try to keep it to a minute.
Try. I mean, hopefully I get a little bit more than a minute, though. Hi, my name is Laura Mooney. I am 22 McNulty Road. My family is originally from Bolton. I am in higher education, so that's going to be part of what I'm going to talk about right now. And also, my mother was an educator, and I have many degrees. So, education, the point I'm trying to make is I believe in education. I think education is very important. But I do not think it needs to be at the expense of all the other programs in town. I'm not saying don't invest in education. I'm saying we do need to have some sort of fiscal responsibility. And if it means maybe looking at the budget a little closer, are there things that we can minimize within the school budget, then I think it's okay to do that. It doesn't mean that we're gonna say, education's bad, let's not invest in our kids, right? So I wanna be clear about that. It's more, let's practice some fiscal responsibility. I work for a higher education institution. I'm actually a fundraiser. So there's two ways that higher education is surviving at this point, and that is either they're closing, they're raising more money, or they're cutting budgets. Cutting budgets, obviously, is those admin costs. So I do think that I can speak from my experience. A lot of the administrators at the university that I work for have taken pay cuts. And that's so they're speaking to the fact that education is important. They want the school to exist. So I do think there are ways that we can work around this. But in the end, fiscal responsibility is really important for the town and for our children and for the people in our community, the senior center, the police. We should be able to have other services in town that matter and can serve the public. I'm not saying education's bad. I want to be very clear about that. But I'm saying that other things matter as well. That's all.
Thank you. Bob?
Good evening, Bob Sikansky, 177 North Road. I've heard a lot about fiscal responsibility tonight, and I'd like to expand upon that a bit because everyone in this room has a role in it. I've been a resident of the town for 30 years. I served for 7 or 8 years on the advisory committee, chaired it a couple of times, served 6 years on the select board, chaired that a couple of times. And full disclosure, currently I am chairman of the high school building committee. I want to address some of the tax issues because that was why I initially joined the advisory committee and the select board. What I've discovered, it's from information I've downloaded from the State Department of Local Services, is that only 3/4 of all the land in Bolton pays taxes. 27% of all the land in Bolton is exempt from taxes. And a large part of that is not the result of decisions the select board has made or advisory or the school district. It's the result of decisions made at town meeting. Because this town has voted many times over the 30 years, and how many times have we heard that there are long-term residents in tonight's meeting? Over the 30 years I've been in town, this town has voted many times to take land off the tax rolls and put it into conservation. That's affected, that rolls by state law, the total value of the town, including the conservation land, gets rolled into the tax computations, but only 3/4 of the landowners are going to have to pay for it. So that shifts the load onto the taxpayers based on decisions that have been made at town meetings. The second thing I've seen repeatedly is a resistance to any commercial development in town. Bolton is among one of the highest towns in the Commonwealth in terms of always relying on the residential taxpayer to pay all of its bills. And that's the reason we're sitting here discussing this tonight. It's not just that the school budget is bad or there's an issue with the way the town is managed. They're only dealing with the cards they've been dealt with. This group of people in town meeting have decided what cards are going to be in that deck. And you may be sitting here regretting the decisions you have made over the past few years for that, but you should not be taking it out on the children.
Thanks, Bob. Do we have one more speaker?
Yeah. Hi, Amy Cohen, 18 Harris Farm Road. I have been on the Neshoba Regional School Committee representing all of you for the last 6 years, but also representing the best interests of every student at Neshoba Regional School District. And that is something that's important to remember in this whole discussion, is that the regional school district has a regional school committee, and our charge is to do what's best for every student in the district, not just what's best for our town or our town's students. And I take that charge very seriously, and it guides every vote that I have taken. I've been a little surprised by the tone of some of the comments tonight, and I want you all to remember that school committee members are taxpayers, residents, parents, volunteers, and we are trying to do what's best for the students in our towns. I think we would all be better served if, instead of pointing fingers, we could find ways to work together to move forward. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Okay, one more.
So I'm what they call in Stowe a stranger. My name is Leah Viverito. I am the chair of the school committee, and I only came here today to provide my support. I didn't anticipate speaking, so I don't necessarily have anything prepared, but for those of you who don't know me, I have 4 children in the school district. I'm a public school teacher for 25 years. I've served on your school committee for 7 years. I live in Stowe, and I've lived there for a long time. I love public education. My mother was a superintendent of school. It's all I've ever known. I recognize the importance of education, just like many of you guys have already said. So I have just a couple of things that I can share. Thing one, I'm really surprised by the animosity, by the tone. I'm your neighbor. Amy's your neighbor. Matt's your neighbor. Everybody at this table over here, we're all neighbors. And so I'm taken aback by the attack mode. So I don't want to do that to anyone in here. I hope that you can tone that down a little bit as we go forward and we plow through these problems that we're facing. 90 communities in the Commonwealth this year are seeking an override. This problem is big. It's bigger than us. It's not necessarily our fault. And pointing fingers, like Bob said, is probably not the best way forward. The other thing that I wanted to say is that comments that are made at this microphone can very quickly and easily be decontextualized. We have been doing this for months. I also don't get paid to sit on the school committee. I do it for all of our kids to try to bring about the best level of education I can. So decontextualizing what has been happening over the last many months is hurtful and not productive. Much scrubbing of the budget has occurred. We have met for hours and hours and hours through the good work of Ross Mulcairn and our great superintendent, Kirk Downing, who is not here to provide any defense. He is in Lancaster because there are simultaneous meetings, not because, and it's more of a coin toss, not because he thought one was going to be harder than the other. I promise you that. The last thing that I wanted to say is that somebody mentioned earlier they're not sure what will happen if our budget is voted down tonight. So I just wanted to provide you with a little detail on what the regional agreement says, a regional agreement that I helped to rewrite a couple of years ago at great pain and time away from my family. So what the regional agreement says is that if the vote fails and a budget does not pass in this 11th hour, then the school district resorts immediately to a 1/12 budget. That 1/12 budget will mean drastic cuts will have to happen, not drastic, but cuts will have to happen across the board for the entire school system, meaning contracts will be violated, all kinds of things cannot be paid for if we go to a 1/12 budget until we resolve the problem. So that's what the regional agreement says. This is truly not the time to vote down a budget. I sat at the public hearing a couple of weeks ago and nobody attended. I recognize through hearsay that there was a 3% request. I attended Tri-Town even though I was not invited. I did attend Tri-Town and I heard what they said about 3%. That is not how you build a budget. You don't say, well, I mean, in my family, we say to ourselves, this is how much money we have. This
okay.
is what we're going to spend.
Can we wrap up, please?
Yes. But I think that a 3% number is fairly arbitrary. We can try to get there in partnership, but I really do think that partnership is going to be important going forward. I probably won't be here for much longer, but the next school committee that comes through, they are the ones that are going to have to be partners with you all.
Thank you for those comments. Okay, I got you, Stan. Kate's going to speak right now. Selectman. Yeah, we got it.
I'm Kate Bayuk. I'm currently chairing the Select Board, and I'm the person who voted no on Article 4 on recommending it to the town. It was a symbolic vote. I consider it firing a warning shot across the bow because it is, while we can absorb it this year, and I will vote in favor of it myself personally, it is not sustainable going forward. So I am hoping that all of the conversation here carries into the school budget process next year. I think that the school district is hearing clearly from the town the concerns that I raised at the Tri-Town meeting, and when we were told that that's not how the district builds the budget. But I think you're hearing from the people in the town that there are a lot of concerns. So that's where I am. I'm voting for the budget, but begrudgingly, and in a couple of years, at this rate, there will be a request for another override, or there will be significant cuts to town services, which I don't think any of us want. I will also point out that when we look at spending across groups in the town, we spend over $21,000 to educate each student. We spend $65 on each senior in this town funding the Council on Aging. So we need to do a better job of allocating resources so that everybody benefits. It's not that the school shouldn't benefit, but there are other constituencies that I represent here who are being misserved by not having a fair shot at the budget.
Thanks, Kate. Stan raised a point of order, which I believe your point was that if 2 of the 3 towns vote for the school budget, it passes. So it doesn't matter if we vote no.
That's correct. If we vote no on the budget, we have to have another special town meeting to revote this budget.
Yeah, we're about to vote our town budget, of which the school is 67%. But if we vote down our town budget, we need to have another town meeting to take another stab at it. But that's up to you in terms of how you're going to vote. I'm really ready to have a vote.
I want to be super clear with you all. I'm sorry, but
No, you don't call on yourself.
oh, I'm sorry.
What do you want to say?
So,
That's what I said. That's exactly what I said. If 2 of the towns vote yes, and the other votes no, it still passes. It passes.
You voted no.
That's,
so the school
that's
doesn't-
exactly what I said.
But you're, okay.
Go ahead.
Kathy Junto, 176 Fox Run. Former school committee member and chair, and I spent a lot of time over my 6 years on the school committee balancing the needs of the town and what the towns, all 3, could afford relative to the needs of the school. And I am sorely disappointed to kind of get a message from our school committee that they don't care what the town can actually sustain. We've been told repeatedly over the years that the increase for the school committee is not sustainable. Now, I also understand the process, and if we amend the school committee budget at all, as in reduce it by $1, your budget is not passed. That's a rejection from the town. It does, however, leave the money in the budget. So if the other towns pass it, we're not stuck as a town trying to find money to support that. It is possible to send a message to the school committee that you need to do more work and understand how to bring a budget that is sustainable and supportable by the town, and not just we have to suck it up because you're doing what you think is best. What is best balances the taxpayers and what we can afford with what the students need. And I'm not hearing that we're doing that. So, just food for thought.
Okay, I would like to vote on Article 4. Is everyone ready? We're ready. I think we're ready to vote. Thank you. And I appreciate that everyone had things to say. We certainly heard them. But we're starting to hear things over again. So, we're going to vote on Article 4. We're going to use our remote devices. All right, so Article 4 is the town operating budget. So you're either voting yes or no to the entire town operating budget. You can vote. Does anyone need any more time? Okay, let's close the vote. And this is a simple majority. It passes. Article 5. New revolving funds, Park and Rec. To see if the town will vote pursuant to the provisions of Mass General laws to establish new revolving funds for the Park and Rec Department. On the article? Move?
Second.
The article's been moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion on this? We have a lot of revolving funds. This is adding this to them. Seeing none, let's try a voice vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That passes. Article 6, spending limits of revolving fund accounts. To see if the town will vote pursuant to Mass General laws to set the limits on the total amounts that can be expended from each of the town's revolving funds. So these are maximum limits that could be used in each of these funds. Sponsors the select board, requires a majority and was unanimous in the recommendation. Any discussion on Article 6? Thank you. Move the article. And second. The article has been moved. Any discussion? Let's try it again by voice. All in favor of Article 6, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That's unanimous. We'll go to Article 7. Was that? We had two versions if we did not pass the earlier one, or did we vote on the wrong one? We're on to 7. All right, thank you. Just want to make sure I do this right. Article 7, transfer to stabilization fund to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds a sum of money not to exceed $427,434.25 to the stabilization fund. The article has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the stabilization fund transfer? Okay, we'll try a voice vote again. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. Passes unanimously. Article 8, transfer to capital stabilization. Bob mentioned each of these in his proposal, in his presentation. To see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds a sum of money not to exceed $579,428 for the capital stabilization fund. The article's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Bob?
Bob Sikansky, North Road. I believe I saw in a presentation from the advisory committee that OPEB is part of this capitalization fund, but there was an OPEB line in the operating budget we passed, and I'm confused. Thank you.
So the OPEB line is not actually part of this capital stabilization fund. It's the next article, and that's to fully fund OPEB. The operating budget doesn't meet 100% of our contribution, so this makes it, the next article will make up the difference.
All right, thank you.
So 2 parts to make up the OPEB contribution, but that's not the article we're on. We're on 8, transfer to capital stabilization. It has been moved and seconded, sponsored by the advisory committee, requires a majority, and recommended by both boards. Any further discussion? All right, we'll go voice again. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. Now we're on Article 9, other post-employment benefits contribution, to see if the town will vote to raise an appropriate or transfer from available funds or otherwise provide the sum of $98,296 for the purpose of funding the town's liability for OPEB, other post-employment benefits contribution.
Second.
The article has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on Article 9? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. Okay, Article 10 is land use table amendments, Section 250-12D by the Planning Board. Let's move the article first.
Second.
Moved and seconded. This is an article that requires a 2/3 majority vote, and it was recommended by both Select Board and Advisory. Bob, do you have a presentation?
Yeah, I'm Bob Romer, 185 Main Street. I'm chair of the Planning Board. First of all, just to make it clear where these votes started, at a duly noticed Planning Board meeting conducted on March 11th, 2026, the Planning Board unanimously voted 5-0 to recommend approval of Article 10 to amend the zoning bylaw land use table. As you can see from the slide here, we are expanding the land use table to do 2 things: to separate a number of somewhat nebulous categories into very specific categories so that they can be better understood both by applicants, developers, and the Planning Board. And secondly, we have added a number in areas that would promote commercial and industrial development. So it's, despite rumors that we're always against economic development. We are not and are working toward that based on a number of things that were done in the master plan and a number of recommendations, one of them this, in the master plan. As I said, it better defines the uses. It separates out general categories. And oh, by the way, it includes categories that have not appeared anywhere in the land use table. The one point, and a very critical point here, is that if a particular activity is not clearly specified in the land use table, it is not permitted. So what we're adding in here are basically things that, new things that can be permitted very specifically. So with that, questions, comments, suggestions?
Excuse me. Can you please state your name? And if it's a quick question, that's fine. Otherwise, please come to the microphone.
Yeah, SP is special permit by the planning board, SSP is by the select board.
Any other questions about this article? There's quite a bit more detail in the warrant.
There certainly is. But I think it's well worth reading through because it does provide a lot of economic development opportunity, many of which were specified as part of the 2022 Main Street Corridor Study, in which we had a consultant analyze the situation, look at potential businesses, look at potential customers internally, externally, and in broader areas well beyond Bolton. So that's part of what we've done.
Any further questions? Comments? All right, then we'll vote on Article 10, changes to the land use table. Try voice again. This is 2/3. We'll see how we do. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That passes by 2/3. The next article is also by the Planning Board, Article 11. Driveway bylaw amendment. And let's move the article first. Moved and seconded. This is presented by the Planning Board, 2/3 majority, and was recommended by both Select Board and Advisory. Bob?
Yes, and again, to get the whole process correct, at a duly noticed Planning Board meeting conducted again on March 11th, 2026, the Planning Board unanimously voted 5-0 to recommend approval of Article 11, amending the zoning bylaw by added design and construction requirements for new driveways. And you can see both in a relatively straightforward definition of the changes, a number of these are based on experience in permitting driveways that have run into problems, and we want to correct and set a better expectation of what we, the Planning Board, are looking for in approval of driveways. Sightline requirements. This is your ability to see traffic in both directions as you exit a driveway. And by the way, see you if you're driving in either of two directions on the road for that driveway. The distance to intersections, we really do not want to see driveways right up against an intersection. We've seen a couple of those in the recent past, had conversations with the developers, and they have moved the driveway to be in a safer location. Drainage requirements have been a big issue. With Bolton, which used to have lots of developable flat land, we really don't anymore. And we're seeing a lot of driveways that are being built through major excavation down to the road, and consequently the result is drainage, and not just drainage, not just water, but in addition to that, the gravel and all the other things that come down the side of a driveway. So we modify the drainage requirements. As I said, it's all about safety, and incidentally, drainage is about safety. In the winter, water turns into ice. and that's a significant safety concern. Now, the one thing you will notice is that there's a little table of distances, site distances, and to those of us who live and have lived, we just passed our 50th year here in Bolton. We really appreciate the roads, but at the same time, we really understand the problems with them. So at the bottom of all of this, we understand and we don't want to run afoul of shade trees or rural road regulations, but we're willing to listen and work with developers to come up with alternatives approach either to the driveway or to things like hemispherical mirrors so people can see a little bit further than they could sticking their nose out into the street.
Thank you, Bob. Any questions or comments about Article 11?
I might add that you're probably getting tired of hearing from me, so Mike Gore, the vice chair, will be doing the next 3 planning board articles. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for that notice. All right, let's vote on Article 11. Driveway bylaw amendments, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Unanimous, passes. Article 12, major residential development. Changes to that, hang on a second, please. Let's move the article. The article's been moved and seconded. This is presented by the planning board, requires a 2/3 majority, and was recommended by the select board and advisory. Mike?
Okay. Mike Gore, 217 Vaughn Hill Road, Vice Chair of the Planning Board. At a duly noticed planning board meeting conducted on March 11th, 2026, the planning board unanimously voted 5-0 to recommend approval of Article 12 to amend the zoning bylaw, Section 250-15 of the Major Residential Development Bylaw. This is a pretty straightforward bylaw change where our current major residential development bylaw is now unlawful due to a recent land court ruling. So we are effectively updating our bylaw to, previously we required anyone filing a major subdivision to also get a special permit for a phosphid. And we can no longer require that, so we are now changing our language to encourage it.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments on an article? Yes.
So, I think
Please introduce yourself.
I'm Tiffany Matthews. I'm at 46 Sergeant Road. So the questions, the language alterations that we're proposing obviously reflect that the state is forcing us to relinquish an important part of our power to ensure profiteering developers don't destroy the beauty of our town or how much our houses are worth with poorly planned and shoddily implemented subdivisions. So it's obviously and clearly stated that, you know, we're proposing this new language because we have to, whether we like it or not. Basically, we're complying with Massachusetts state law. So that's not my question. My queries are around both like timing and implementation in terms of the language. So the timing piece, the land use case that is referred to here is from 2008.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of wondering, like, why is this bubbling up to the surface now? Has there been a particular issue that has come about?
Massachusetts updated their laws recently to do this, even though it's an older court case. I think it just takes time to bubble through the process.
But quite a bit of time, apparently.
A bit, yeah.
Yeah. 20 years, more or less?
If I can kind of assuage you, though,
Yeah.
you know, of all the years that I've been on the planning board, which is I think over 10 at this point, since we've had the phosphid in place, every developer has chosen the phosphid route for development over traditional subdivision. It saves them money, and it provides a nicer area. They protect open space.
Mhm.
So even though we have required it, it's always the option that they've chosen.
Great. So hopefully
we,
they're
we
gonna...
continue to have faith that that's, you know, and we can steer them. The planning board is good about steering people for things like that.
Yeah, I mean, and that was in fact the other part of my question, is that the language that we're replacing the current language with talks about how we'll encourage
Yes.
them to use phosphid. And I sort of wondered if there was any chance to be able to utilize more perhaps forceful language or some other kind of language beyond just will encourage them to
Yeah.
do so, which
Yep.
seemed potentially
No,
naive.
like I said, because most choose to develop with phosphorus, it ends up saving them money in the long run. It's less impervious, it's less paving and less smaller lot sizes. So generally, they tend to go with that.
It's actually a really good bylaw that was put in place a long time ago, and as you said, Mike, it ends up benefiting the town, and most developers see it as the better way to go. So it's worked really well.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, let's vote on Article 12, Major Residential Development Changes. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. Article 13, Inclusionary Zoning Amendment. We're moved and seconded the article. It's presented by the planning board, requires a 2/3 majority, and was recommended by both the select board and the advisory. Mike?
At a duly noticed planning board meeting conducted on March 11th, 2026, the planning board unanimously voted 5-0 to recommend approval of Article 13 to amend the zoning bylaw section 250-27, inclusionary zoning requirements, to allow the planning board to define local preferences for affordable housing units. This is a change to our bylaws to allow the planning board to directly set the definitions for local preference. Prior to this, it was done by the select board. Over the years, we've had a number of things that the select board had in the bylaw and would generally just refer to the planning board, so this just streamlines the process and assigns them directly to the planning board.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments about Article 13? All right, let's vote. All in favor of Article 13, inclusionary zoning amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? Passes unanimously. Article 14, street acceptance, Keys Farm subdivision, Moderator Way. That's been moved and seconded. This requires a majority vote and was also approved and recommended by both the select board and the advisory. Mike?
At a duly noticed planning board meeting conducted on April 8th, 2026, the planning board unanimously voted 5-0 to recommend Moderator Way be accepted as a public road. So this is accepting Moderator Way, which is off of Route 85, for those who are familiar with it. This is a little bit of a unique situation because the town actually already owns the land due to a legal dispute with the developer, but this is to allow it to be eligible for Chapter 90 improvements, and since the town's already paying for it. So this is just part of the normal road acceptance process.
Any questions or comments on Article 14? Stan?
Stan Wysocki, 74 Hudson Road. I just want to make sure, since as a former selectman, I was intimately involved in the whole development process for years and years. Has all the as-built been done? Has all the work been done? Has it survived a winter? And have you gone back out and taken a look at it? Excellent. Thank you very much.
Yes to all counts.
Once a select board member, always. Thanks, Stan. Any other comments? All right, let's vote on Article 14, street acceptances of Keys Farm Moderator Way. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay? Passes unanimously. Okay, we're now going to have a presentation by Select Board Member Brian Boyle.
All right, thank you. And first of all, thank you to the hardy souls who are still here. I'm watching some people leave, and I'm hoping maybe you'll stay to hear it. No, I'm just kidding. So I'll be quick. One of the things we wanted to do was to take advantage of the fact that we have all of you here to preview some key decisions that are coming pretty quickly. Within the next year, the town is going to need to make some choices about the future of the town hall as well as the Houghton building. So on the next slide, can we move to the next slide? Okay, sorry. So basically, we have about 5 buildings that are in the municipal portfolio. Our public safety building in the center of town, and the library in the center of town, Town Hall and Houghton Building along Main Street, and then the DPW off of Forbush Mill Road. So Town Hall and Houghton Building are both very, very old, and they're in need of significant modification, and they have really high ongoing maintenance costs. Not to sort of pre-decide anything, but that is a choice that we're going to have to make as a town, whether we want to continue putting money and investments into these buildings or to potentially come up with some other disposition for those buildings. The select board is aware that all of the decisions around here are trade-offs, and we'd like to get some community input. Next slide, please. So what we are planning to do is we'd like to establish a citizen task force to take a look at the buildings, to take a look at some of the options. Just to give you a sense, the select board has already done some of that work. For example, we recently did site visits of a couple of properties that could potentially serve if we were to rent there as alternate sites for some of our municipal operations. But we don't think this is a decision that the select board should make without input from the community. So we're seeking for volunteers who can look into this, present some recommendations in a public meeting to the select board and the advisory committee so that we tee up a decision for you all. To Bob Zakansky's point, ultimately, you guys are the governing body of the town, so that we'll be in a position to make a decision probably before next year's town meeting. Next slide. I think I already talked about that. This is, oh, I have to give a shout out to the Bolton Historical Society because they had some great photos, and this is an actual photo from town meeting years ago. We are expecting within a year that some votes around these questions will be teed up at an annual meeting. And on the last slide, I'll just close with a couple of quick words about what we're looking for in task force members. So, glutton for punishment. No, I'm just kidding. You need to have an interest in helping with this project, and ideally it would be great for a mix of people with some expertise in facilities, historic preservation, finance, architecture, community planning. So if you're interested, please send a note to our lovely executive assistant, Jenny Jacobson, at ea@bolton.ma.gov, and we're going to try to pull something together in the coming months. Thanks.
Thanks, Brian. Article 15, engineering for the repair or replacement of a drinking water well. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or borrow from available funds the sum of $125,000. The article has been moved and seconded. This is sponsored by the Select Board. It does require a 2/3 majority and was recommended by both Select Board and Advisory. Do we have any comments about the drinking water well? Is there any background we could give people about why we need to do this? Who wants to answer that? Go to the next slide. No? Nope. Sorry, we don't have the slide. Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Why was the slide reversed? Oh. Why is it requiring 2/3? I believe it's because we're borrowing or appropriating money. Borrowing requires 2/3. Sorry about that.
I'm Randy Heglin, Public Works Director. Last July, we had several positive bacteriological tests at the library and public safety building. It's a common well that serves both buildings. It was positive coliform and positive E. coli. We video inspected the well. We found that the casing had broken about 35 feet below ground surface, just about at the interface between the gravel and the bedrock. It was allowing non-potable water into the well, causing contamination and bacteria problems. We're in the process of installing a temporary disinfection system for both buildings. Key word is temporary. The DEP, because they are considered public drinking water supplies, requires us to come up with a permanent solution for the permanent repair of the well or drill a new well. The decision on whether it's going to be repairing the new well or drilling a new well is still kind of up in the air. There is one method that we're exploring, but it may not be approvable by the DEP. So this request is to commence with what the final recommendation is to proceed with the engineering design so we can come up with plan specs for ultimate advertisement for a permanent solution.
Thanks, Randy. That good? Another question?
The well is about 300 feet deep. Right now, there are two pumps in the well, one on top of the other at about 120 and 135 feet, something like that. The well casing is broken 35 feet down below, and the exact cost of drilling a new well is still to be determined because it's a function of many things. Number one being the yield. We have to keep drilling a well so much feet, till we get a yield. If it's a new bedrock well and we've moved and we're not hitting the veins of water like we are currently, you have to keep going until you get that volume of water. Water quality is also a question mark. Right now, we don't have any PFAS in our well. It's tested, but if we drill a new well, the water may come from a different direction. And recall that there's some property on Wattaquatic Hill Road that has PFAS in it. If we have to start treating for PFAS, those costs also increase if the state requires a permanent disinfection. So the answer to your question, can I answer how much is it going to be to just drill a new well? I can't answer that right now. I don't have that information. It's still kind of up in the air. We're hoping to do the cheaper option of putting in the liner, get the state to approve it, but whether or not they will right now is questionable.
Thank you, Randy. Any other questions about the well? So Article 15, engineering for the repair or replacement of a drinking water well. Let's vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 2/3. Article 16, public safety building phone infrastructure, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds a sum of money not to exceed $7,091 for upgrading the phone infrastructure servicing the public safety building. The article's been moved and seconded. This article is recommended by the Public Safety Committee, a majority vote, and recommended by both the Select Board and Advisory unanimously. Any discussion? No? Okay. All those in favor of Article 16, Public Safety Building Phone Infrastructure, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. Article 17, transfer station cameras, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds a sum of money not to exceed $33,833.05 for the purpose of installing cameras at the transfer station. The article's been moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion on Article 17? Question, what necessitates the need for cameras? Marie?
The transfer station is the only municipal facility without cameras. One of the concerns, though, that we have had is individuals of unauthorized use of the transfer station.
How many people work at the transfers? There are many hours of the day when there aren't people there.
There are two individuals. I will turn this over to the DPW Director, Heglin, but just as there are individuals who work at the town hall or who work at the library or the public safety building, it's still advisable to have cameras.
The transfer station is a facility that is also shared with Highway Department operations. The gate is left unlocked quite often during the day for our own operations, either snow and ice issues, or we may be going up there to get gravel, materials, grindings, etc. We have had instances where people have come in with the transfer station closed, even though it says transfer station closed, and utilize the facility. So,
Doug.
Okay.
Also, I would point out that this will bring internet access with the possibility of POS service for purchases of bags. There is currently no internet service at the transfer station.
Thanks, Kate. Are we ready to vote? Article 17, transfer station cameras. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay? That passes by a majority. Article 18, DPW garage painting. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds a sum of money not to exceed $46,500 to paint the Department of Public Works garage. The article's been moved and seconded. It was sponsored by the Department of Public Works. This one requires a majority, and the Select Board and Advisory unanimously approved it. Any questions? Comments? All right, then let's vote. DPW garage painting. All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Opposed, nay? Passes unanimously. Article 19, NRSD, Neshoba Regional School District, Florence Sawyer, and Emerson Network switches. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow or transfer from available funds a sum of money not to exceed $121,400 for the replace to replace the network switches at Florence Sawyer and Emerson schools. The article's been moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Matt Bosselet, 88 Laurel Road. I understand that we own the Sawyer and Emerson buildings as a town, not the school district, so hypothetically something like doors we'd be responsible for. Where's the line in the regional agreement between things like the building infrastructure, doors, walls, the capital, versus something like network switches, which to me is the fit, finish, and polish, the things to outfit the school? Is that something that's in the regional agreement, or how does that get delineated?
Okay. I think Ross is going to give us an answer. Question is, what is the line between what the town owns and is responsible for versus the school district?
Yeah, so it's a very fair question. Mr. Boyle, please jump in if I display any inaccuracies or omissions here. So as part of the regional agreement revisit several years ago, part of the capital discussion revolves around what's called DESE Function Code 5000, which is the State Education Department's capital definition, and part of that definition is technology. It has to be $10,000 or more, and it has to have a useful life of 5 years or more. Mr. Boyle, I leave anything out? Nope. So capital technology in this case would be under the terms of the regional agreement, which is why it's here today as a separate warrant article and not part of the operating budget.
Thanks, Ross.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions? Comments? All right, then let's vote Article 19, NRSD, Florence Sawyer and Emerson Network switches. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. Article 20, NRSD Emerson Doors, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds a sum of money not to exceed $101,700 for the purpose of replacing the doors at Emerson School.
Move the article, Mr. Moderator.
The article's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments? All right, let's vote the article. All those in favor of Article 20, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. I think that was unanimous. Article 21, wastewater treatment facility upgrade. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds a sum of money not to exceed $59,438 for enhancements to the wastewater treatment facility.
Move the article, Mr. Moderator.
The article has been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments about the wastewater treatment facility upgrade? Okay. Let's vote. All those in favor of Article 21, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. Article 22, fire pond improvements. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds a sum of money not to exceed $20,000 for maintenance, repairs, and improvements to any fire ponds within Bolton.
Move the article, Mr. Moderator.
The article's been moved and seconded. Any discussion about fire ponds? I think I heard we have 50 or more. Okay, let's vote for the fire pond improvements, Article 22. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. Article 23, highway improvements. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer a sum of money not to exceed $75,000 for supplemental local improvements.
Move the article, Mr. Moderator.
The article's been moved and seconded. Any questions? Comments? Okay. All those in favor of Article 23, highway improvements, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. Article 24, Bower Brook repair of earthen dam. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds a sum of money not to exceed $75,000 to repair earthen dam at Bower Brook.
Move the article, Mr. Moderator.
The article's been moved and seconded, and I believe we have one slide.
That was the one slide that's up there, Doug.
Okay.
I can just speak to it quickly. My name is Brian Barabee. I currently chair the Bolton Conservation Commission. This is an article that was sponsored by us. We're requesting the sum of $75,000 to complete Phase 2 of the earthen dam repairs at for Bowers Brook in Bowers Springs Conservation Area. This project was based off a 2021 assessment by GZA Geoenvironmental, looking at our dams and their chance of possibly failing in the future and what they would need to basically maintain the dams there at the Bowers Springs Conservation Area. Phase 1 has been completed. Phase 2 is going to restore proper grading, stabilize the dam surface, improve trails, and reestablish the surrounding vegetation. Currently, we are not seeing major seepage or any holes in the dam, but there is significant erosion, and we're afraid that some of the greater signs of failing are in our not too distant future. We've been advised that it is probably best to deal with this now rather than to push it off into future years, as it gets more expensive if the dam does start to actually go into failure. I was going to say it's basically an investment. As part of this, we're able to pursue a Mass Trails grant that may underwrite the full cost, the full $75,000. The town would still be responsible for a $16,000 match, but part of that can be done with matching, with gifts in kind or in-kind work or other ways to basically come up with our match other than the straight cash. There's no guarantee that we can get this Mouse Trails grant. We have gotten grants like this in the past, so we're hopeful this time, but in theory, we are asking for the full 75 and hoping that we can get the grant after the fact. But I'm here, if there's any questions, comments, happy to answer any. Sure. So that was, we did discuss that. There is a cost to removing the dam. If we want to remove the dam, it would probably be actually more expensive to have that come in and done right. There is the ability to let it fail on its own, which is fine, but in order to do that, now that we know it's a safety concern, we're waiting for it to fail catastrophically. We basically have to shut that area down to the public. This is probably our most used conservation area by a number of people here in town. And this would basically force us to shut down a major chunk of it, and the chunk that people generally tend to use, the path between the two different ponds. So that is a possibility. We could let it would change the ecology of the area. We'd lose some of the features that we currently enjoy there, but that is a possibility in letting it fail. It's a good point. Somebody pointed out it's used by Tom Denny Nature Camp as well. That's the pond that they do their kayaking and learn to fish and all those things on. Again, that's something we would lose if we opted to let it fail. My guess is if we're going to I'd rather spend the money to fix it than spend the money to take it down. So I'd kind of go with one of those two options, either fix it or allow it to fail naturally.
Thanks, Brian. Okay, all those in favor of Article 24, Bower Brook Repair of Earthen Dam, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. Article 25, replacement of a 2002 International six-wheel dump sander. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds a sum of money not to exceed $338,450 for the acquisition of a six-wheel dump sander with plow attachment.
Move the article, Mr. Moderator.
The article's been moved and seconded. Do we have any questions or discussion? Okay. We'll vote. All those in favor of Article 25, replacement of the 2002 International with a six-wheel dump sander, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. Article 26, replacement of a Ford F-250. Oh, I'm sorry, Ford F-550. All right, we did 25. With a 26,000 GVW dump truck. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds a sum of money not to exceed $253,198 for the acquisition of the 26,000-pound GVW truck.
Move the article, Mr. Moderator.
Second. Article's been moved and seconded. There's a picture. Any questions or comments? All right. We'll vote Article 26, replacement of the Ford 550 with the 26,000-pound GVW dump truck. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Article 27, select board to accept easements. To see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to acquire on behalf of the town easements for the following purposes: roads, sidewalks, vehicular, bicycle, or pedestrian access or passage, water, drainage, sewer, fiber optic cable, electricity, and other utilities. where easements are acquired at no cost to the town.
I'll move the article, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. The article's been moved and seconded. This just requires a majority. Any question about or comments? Okay, all those in favor of Article 27, Select Board to accept the easements, please say aye. All those opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. I know everyone's bummed out we're not using these, but, you know. Here, why don't we use it on this next one, okay? I was just trying, I knew it would be faster if we had lack of debate, but, you know, it's old school. I kind of prefer it, but. Article 28, adopt MGL C-138 and 33B alcohol service on Sundays. This is authorizing the Select Board as the local licensing authority to allow restaurants to serve alcohol between 10 and noon on Sunday.
Move the article, Mr. Moderator.
It's been moved and seconded. Do we have any comment or questions? All right. We're going to vote with the clickers, just for fun. Okay. All those in favor of Article 28, you want to hit 1 yes on your clicker, and all those opposed, you want to hit no 2. Does anyone need any more time? Let's close the vote, please. Passes 106 to 7. All right, Article 29 is to authorize our town election, which will be held a week from today on Monday the 11th. So please do come out and vote for these positions between the hours of noon and 8. Right here at the auditorium.
Move the article, Mr. Moderator.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on allowing us to have a town election? All right, let's vote again with the clickers. So all in favor? 1. Opposed? 2. Anyone need any more time? Let's close it. 98 to 3. Interesting, there's less of a majority when we use the clickers. Okay, I did want to just say one thing. I wanted to mention that Ninochka Rogers is leaving the town. She's worked for us for 18 years as our town accountant, and thank you. Good luck in your future endeavors. Now I would entertain a motion to...
Motion to adjourn without clickers.
Motion to adjourn.
Without clickers.
Made and seconded. Nope. I'm sorry, I used the wrong word. I would like a motion to dissolve.
Motion to dissolve.
Thank you. Second. The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Nay? Unanimous. Thank you, and thank you all for coming and participation tonight.